numbers just to back that up for you, right? We have ground in Kirbyville. I mean, you can see the water and how deep it is.
Exactly.
You know, type of a thing.
I just didn't know exactly a measurement.
Of course. But we have the ground truth that a tremendous amount of rain has fallen, whether it's 15 inches, 12 inches, 9 inches, 14 inches. It doesn't matter. What we do know is it's flooding. And that number we'll just use for scientific terms, but we will see a lot more of that because we are going to have rainfall rates an hour that are 2 to 3 inches. That will cause flooding. The highest likelihood of flooding is going to be closer to the Gulf Coast, but this rain is spreading north, and there's heavy downpours with that as well. So you could have maybe 1 to 2 inches an hour if you are a little bit farther to the north. Regardless, we have a flood threat, we have a tornado threat, we have a damaging wind threat, with winds gusting over 75 miles an hour. That can do similar damage to a tornado. So yes, we have a very dangerous day ahead along the Gulf Coast here and all the way up into Tennessee as well. That heavy rain gets into places like Birmingham, Montgomery, Hattiesburg. We have live crews out here to show you what will be happening, give you more ground truth to this weather as we head through the afternoon hours. This all pushes into Georgia. Notice the upper level energy still back here into Texas. That's rotating around, still raining out for us here into Texas, Oklahoma, Little Rock, and into Shreveport too. So there's your main line as we head overnight. The storms stick with us. The severe weather sticks with us. It'll be ongoing into tomorrow morning as well. Then on top of all of that, just the entire system will be giving us breezy and gusty conditions. So there are wind advisories posted from Texas all the way here through the Big Bend of Florida. And that's what you call a synoptic scale wind. You have the low pressure, the front, and then you have mesoscale when you're going down to the thunderstorms and the tornadoes. There is that flash flood threat in yellow. That's where we're talking that 2 to 3 inch an hour rainfall rates. But we already have saturated ground, so even getting much less than that will be causing some flooding because over the past 48 hours, look at these estimates here. 5, 8+ inches of rain, basically Yazoo City, Vicksburg, northwestbound. Even Jackson, that 3 to 5 inches, you throw more rain on top of it, and now you throw in damaging winds or a tornado, and Jim, those trees are going to come down very easily.
Yeah, it's wet. They're leafed out.
That's as you were mentioning, Jordan, as we go into tomorrow, it's not going to be as fierce as it is today. But as Jim was showing you, some of that severe weather does last into the overnight hours, and we still have it tomorrow. I'm not saying we are not going to have severe weather, but our TORCOM values are going to go from a 7 to a 3. Now, a 3 is still dangerous. One tornado over your house, even as an EF1 or an EF0, that's a problem. But today, it is going to be much more widespread and much more intense. I'm talking supercells, long track tornadoes, and we will see some of that again overnight into tomorrow morning. But we are going to see that threat level come down a bit as this expands across the East Coast tomorrow morning. So here we have, this is a warm front. That is a cold front. This is an occluded front. That's when the cold front overtakes a warm front. And the occlusion happens usually when this starts to kind of, I don't want to say use the word wind down. That's probably not a proper word to use, but getting into the later stages of its life. And so that's what the occlusion is and means. And there's other stuff that goes along with it. But I want to focus on the warm sector, which is south of this warm front. That's where you're going to have that energy. And notice it builds into the Carolinas as we head into tomorrow afternoon and evening. And the reason being is we do have some low-level winds coming in. All right. And so that's going to give us strong winds at the surface. And then you go up a little bit and you get winds shifting to the west. So there's still that chance for a little bit of spin in the atmosphere. Regardless, Jim, we are going to have very heavy rain as we head into tomorrow and still the threat for damaging winds and storms.
Yeah. All the way.
Severe thunderstorm warning in this parish as well. So here we go. There's a lot going on in the map. We're going to break it down for you, so don't get overwhelmed by this. Let me just give you the lay of the land. All these green outlined areas, you see a big line of them. Those are flash flood warnings. Within that, we do have flash flood emergency happening. This is around that Kerrville area where we were showing you video before, and there are feet of water in homes. And so this is a very serious flooding situation. You need to get to higher ground immediately. immediately. Then we have this new tornado warning. This is St. Landry Parish. That is where Charles Peak is driving through right now, and I know he's paying attention to that, and he will get to a safe place if necessary. But as we look at this is the area where we have the most severe weather, and there it is for you. There's your rotation right there. And this is racing off to the northeast. A lot of these storms are moving very quickly, 50, 60 plus miles an hour. And so you need to be careful if you're in Church Point along 190, 182, Opelousas as well. And this is all heading off to our northeast, and it is blinding rain, heavy rain, flooding rain. Look at the video there at Lake Charles, that live camera at Lake Charles. That is essentially what you're going to see in these cells. It is that heavy as well. So if you are in any of these cities, Pittsburghville down towards Washington, then you need to make sure that you are at the lowest level, most interior room of your home immediately. These are right now radar indicated, but there are multiple tornado warnings back towards Lake Charles. That camera again on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see how hard it would be to actually see a tornado with all that heavy rain and all that lightning that's coming in as well. It is very, very, very convective right now. Everything is moving off to the east for us here, and we will continue to follow these storms closely as we go through the day today. This is our radar beam. If you're wondering what that is your radar beam, and then you can have some rotation right into there. You see this little notch here? That is one of the areas of concern for us. Oh, Jill's trying to circle it for you. I'm trying to circle it for you at the same time, and now we're locked up here. There we go. So that is one area of rotation, and that is quite tight for us here, and that is going to be racing off to the northeast. So we'll put on some cities for you. If you're in Homewood, Bell City, Welsh, this is headed in your direction. Homewood, you are next in line here at 6:43 local time. So within the next 2.5 to 3 minutes, you need to be in your shelter. Again, lowest level, not to mention the flooding rain threat and the wind damage with all of this too. So do keep that in mind. Now down to our flash flood emergency. You have a flash flood warning. And then a flash flood emergency is even worse. They are reporting up to 8 inches of rain in this area, a foot of rain in some spots as well. And that has happened in a very short amount of time, and it is still coming down 1, 2, 3 inches an hour. So the flooding is just going to get worse before it gets better. There are reports of feet of water into people's homes. Here's over the past 12 hours. This is just an estimate, and you can see that we're around a foot in some of these areas. And yes, sometimes, as we say, that these estimates are a little hot, which means they're a little high, but we've seen the video and the ground truth to the fact that there is tremendous amounts of water on the ground, whether it's 8 inches, 12 inches, 15 inches. It is a bad scenario for anyone that is experiencing that. And by the way, we are not finished with the rain. As you can see, it's a lot lighter, but it's still falling. So it's going to just exacerbate the situation for us here. This is right on the border of Texas and Louisiana. There's Shreveport, Louisiana. There's Beaumont, Texas. Lake Charles, Louisiana, of course, hit by Hurricane Laura several years ago. And really, I-10 is going to be an absolute mess this morning, and will be as all of this moves east through the day. Jim, it's not just tornadoes. It's not just flash flooding. It's not just hail. We've got it all here, even wind damage. It's going to be pretty big today, too.
Stephanie, you are in.
And supercell looking structures with some of these. We're going to have Jim take a break, get a little coffee in him, take a breather, and show you the forecast and what we are dealing with. Our tornado condition index. It goes from 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest threat. We have a 7. So you're talking about numerous tornadoes. You're talking long track tornadoes potentially, and also those supercells that I was mentioning. And even if you're not in the 7, having a 5, having a 3, this is going to be a very dangerous day, not only for the tornadic threat, but also the wind threat. Notice 75 mile per hour or greater winds. So you could have widespread wind damage. Jim was showing you the line that was kind of bowing out all along that. You could have significant wind damage with trees falling on homes, on cars, power lines, shingles getting ripped off roofs. There's all sorts of things that can happen, not to mention hail that will be big enough to cause dents in your roof or on your car. And it's going to be playing out through the entire day. That's what Jim was kind of alluding to, is that as we go through the day, some of those parameters are going to go up even. with that daytime heating. Look how our parameters turn red towards the coast. That means that they're getting higher as we head around 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And within this type of a situation, you're going to have very strong winds. These could be individual cells, kind of like we're dealing with now. And then on top of that, you have the flash flood threat with 1, 2, even 3-inch-an-hour rainfall rates that will cause flash flooding. No one can handle that. Notice we're now around 4 o'clock. You still have the system ongoing. You're going to have severe weather in Alabama, Mississippi, Shreveport. This is the upper level energy that is really helping fire things off. Also, you have the jet energy and the low level jet energy. It's all converging on the south, giving us this severe weather. 9 o'clock at night, we're going to bed. You still have to be weather aware from Alabama down into Florida. That's the upper level energy that is hanging behind. And as we go into the overnight and early morning hours, there's still the potential for tornadoes, even into tomorrow. It's not going to be as intense and as fierce, but that threat is still there. There's not only a threat, you know, when you're talking about a supercell with a tornado, but on a larger scale with this system, just widespread winds, 40, 50 miles an hour. These are the ones you kind of feel when you go outside and the trees are blowing like that, opposed to those acute, intense winds that are within a thunderstorm. So we've got it coming from every angle here. Then the flood threat. Most people die from water. We're talking flash flooding. So if you're along the I-10 corridor going up, you know, to Montgomery, even Jackson, this is where we have the highest likelihood of flooding. But notice that flood threat, it extends all the way up into Paducah, where we have that deeper green. And this is rain on top of already saturated grounds. And so that means that you don't need a lot in order to get flooding. I mean, it's been so wet in the south. Jackson, over the past 24 hours, we've seen 5, maybe plus inches of rain. Back towards Vicksburg, along the Mississippi River, we have definitely seen that 5 to 8 inches just in the last 48 hours, and now we're dumping a lot more on top of it. So that's why we're really concerned about the flood threat. Jordan, Jackson, southbound is where we really kind of have that 7. Northbound, yeah, it's a 4, maybe a 3, but you still have to pay very close attention to the weather, be weather aware all day long.
Well, think about just what happened yesterday.
Tornadic threat, but also this wind damage threat. Wind gusts 75 miles an hour or greater, very likely here. Louisiana, Mississippi, on into Alabama as well. We're going to watch this line make its way through the south. It takes the entire day, and in fact goes into the overnight hours too. There's a very significant flash flooding threat. We've already seen a flash flood emergency, which is the highest warning you can possibly get. That means you need to go to higher ground immediately. That flash flooding is happening, and we had feet of water into homes and people getting taken to shelters. Wind damage is going to be huge. This line coming through Montgomery down to Mobile around 4 o'clock, that could cause significant wind damage. And then within that, I know that these cells don't look too dangerous kind of on their own, but that little hook that Jim was showing you, that is a supercell structure, and we could get those out of these little cells. That's the upper level energy that's keeping us wet and keeping us cloudy and cool, but that severe weather all spreads east, and it continues. Look at that into the overnight hours. Florida, Alabama, on into southern Georgia, and the flash flooding is already happening in numerous counties. We're going to see a lot more of it. This is just the first round that is passing through New Orleans, and we will see several more rounds. And don't forget that big line is headed in our direction, but you saw that we had some heavy rain come through. There's more that will be making its through. It's just off to our west, off to our south, and here's the estimated rainfall over the past 3 hours, a couple inches. But with the anticipation of all of this rain that will be making it through over the next several hours. I mean, it's going to take through the day to get this storm throughout the south. Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Bernard parishes all under that flash flood warning until 10:45 local time. I wouldn't be surprised to see more people under any of these flash flood warnings, because we've got this line that is bowing out. I mean, all along this, you're talking about extremely damaging winds with this. We've already seen them gusting over 60 miles an hour. I think it was Lake Charles had a gust up to 63. And then St. Landry, we have a tornado warning. And then there's another tornado warning as well. And it's all along this line, because it's not just about those supercells, which we've been showing you this morning. In the supercell feature, you know, you've got the air, it goes like this. So you get all this hail and, rain up here, and then usually you get the tornado down there. That's kind of the structure of a supercell. It's not just about those, but along big lines like this of winds that are gusting out ahead of our storms, you can also get very damaging winds. And you can see, look at that, 66 miles, 69, 70 mile an hour winds along this line. And that's going to do widespread damage. A tornado could go down a street and do a lot of damage, and that is significant as well. But a lot of people will be impacted by this line of winds for us here. And within that area, you can get little notches that spin up. The wind comes out and you get little spin ups along that. And that is one of the reasons that you're going to have those tornado warnings along these lines that are coming through. So from Bunkie all the way down to Abbeville, this is headed east along I-10. So Baton Rouge, you're in line. New Roads. It's going to get to St. Martinville, 749. New Iberia, 756. Baton Rouge, it's an 8:10 in the morning situation, which of course is terrible timing for people trying to head out to work and to school as well. This is where the big show is right now. It's going to get worse before it gets better. We have a very dangerous day ahead for us here. Power outages are already mounting. Calcasieu, almost 30,000 customers without power. Remember, these came over from Beaumont, where we had some strong winds, and are riding along that I-10 corridor. So we are going to get more of those storms. And there you go. It's eastern Texas where we had those stronger storms. Montgomery is the county with still over 13,000 customers without power. The worst of the weather has really moved out of Texas and is into Louisiana. We're still going to see rain into Texas as we go through the day today, and there are still some flash flood warnings. And in fact, this is a flash flood emergency that is right on the western side of the border with Louisiana into Texas. And flash flooding is, or I should say water is really the #1 killer. Flooding is the #1 killer. And if you are in Kirbyville, Newton, Spurger, you need to get to higher ground immediately, because you have a flash flood warning, which is the area in green, and then a flash flood emergency is the next level, on the highest level that you can get. Jim, radar estimates here over a foot of rain, and whether it's 8 inches, 9 inches, a foot, 13, we've got a very serious situation going on here. The numbers don't matter at this exact moment.
Exactly. The fact is, we've had water rescues. We have reports of several feet of water. While you were on, Lake Charles came in with a possible tornado in the Lake Charles area. So not surprised.
Wouldn't be surprised. They had a couple tornado warnings there
right
earlier.
Along that squall line.